Steve Barry is the New York Times and #1 internationally best-selling author of 20 Cotton Malone novels. He's here on the show to talk about the most recent, but also to take us behind the scenes on his writing process and how he toggles between his incredible love of history with an understanding and knowledge of what's going on in the world today, and also knowing what readers might want to pay attention to in the future. For those of us who are looking to encourage a love of writing, a love of curiosity, as well as a love of history, this week's special guest is going to deliver on that. Please welcome to the show the incredible, prolific writer, Steve Barry. Steve Barry, you are just prolific with your work, with your celebration of history, and with your 20th edition. It feels also like you're really tapping into the current times as well. I'm wondering if we could go way back, and might you tell listeners a little bit about kind of your relationship with history before you became the regular commonplace author, known entity that you are today? Did you love history growing up, or how did you become the Steve Barry of 2026?
I did love history, actually. I loved it a lot. My father was a traveling salesman, so he would leave on Monday, come back on Friday. He was a big reader, and he would always come home with a stack of books about this high, which my mother never really cared for too much because we had a lot of books in the basement. He loved history, so he bought a lot of histories, and he put them on those shelves down there. And I can remember going down into the basement, cutting on that light, that bare bulb, and there they are on these metal shelves stacked up, and you could just pick off what you wanted and read them. And I think that's where it was born. It didn't occur, I didn't write my first word. I was 35 years old, and so it was a lot of years went by. And when I started to write, I realized that I loved action, history, secrets, conspiracies. These are the things that I like. These are the things I enjoy. And it stems back to right there, and probably also to the Hardy Boys, because that's what we had when we were kids. It was Hardy Boys books. And there's one, I think it's number 8. It's called The Twisted Claw. And it's great because it deals with a book, a treasure hunt, an island, a secret society. And that's probably where it all came from for me. That's probably where the first inkling of everything came from for me. So yes, it was all there. So when I started to write, I naturally wrote what I loved. And history is an intricate part of the book. I take something from the past, something real, something you may not know a lot about, but I hope you want to know more about. And I weave a modern day thriller around those things.
I love that it's come full circle for you, that it sort of started with books. It's brought you back to producing so many books. And that recipe that you outline very much is at play with the Devil's Bible. We've got geopolitics, we've got history, we've got that thriller element, but we also have a character that you have crafted that's become a fan favorite. When you are working on a book now that you have this massive audience who's been following along with you, is the recipe having to keep that fan base in mind, or is what you just outlined the idea that I really want people to learn a little bit more about something from the past? I want it anchored in the present. Does the recipe shift? Has it shifted for you over time to kind of play to your fan base?
Well, you can't ignore the fan base. You can't just say, I'm going to write whatever I want and too bad. It doesn't work like that. You can do it, but no one will buy it. No one will read it. So you have to be careful of that. In my case, I have to write the same but different. That's the formula, the same but different. So it's really a tricky formula, very tricky formula. All my books are very different. They're extremely different, but they're also the same in a lot of ways too. And so that concept there of how to put that together, you have to be cognizant of it. And in my case, I stay about 2 years ahead of the reader. So I'm writing right now what you will read in 28. So I'm 2 years ahead. This book was written, The Devil's Bible, in 24. So I have to not only keep you happy, I got to figure out what you will find interesting 2 years from now as well. Luckily, I've kind of got the hang of that, and I've done pretty well at how I've made those decisions and what I've selected. So it's worked out. It's worked out well. I will say, though, starting with the Atlas Maneuver 2 years ago and the Medici Return last year, and now this book, and there's more to come, Cotton's world is going to change a little bit, changing up his world. His world is going to be upended a bit. Just like in life, everything can't stay the same. You've got to make some changes. So the same, but different, but a little more on the different, because there's a little bit things there, but then it'll come back to the same, hopefully. And that's the trick that you have to, for longevity. And, I'm 20 books in and I want to keep going for 20 more.
Let's talk about that research that you touched on just then, the idea of toggling between doing the research that you need to do in terms of history, but also that anticipatory nature that you referenced in terms of what will readers want to be interested in the future. Logistically, how do you map both of those things out? Is there like a massive, you mentioned liking conspiracies. Do you have a huge bulletin board somewhere in your office? Are you analog? Do you commit to doing one of the lenses first rather than later? What does that logistically look like?
Well, I have to find first the thing from history. I got to have that first. And I call that the ooh factor. Like here, the Devil's Bible. Like, ooh, what is that? I'm going to know, that's what you want. You got to get that first. It's got to be real. Hopefully not a lot known about it. Hopefully a lot of mystery with it so I can play with it a little bit. Then I have to have the so what. All right, who cares? Who cares about Devil's Bible? In this case, for example, Russia, the United States, the Czech Republic, and Sweden all want the Devil's Bible, but they all want it for a different reason, and it's up to Cotton to steal it and get it to the right one. So that's how I weave it together, where the Devil's Bible becomes so important. In this case, it deals with Sweden's entrance into NATO, which for many years was held up by Turkey. But in my world, it's held up by the Czech Republic. And so that's the geopolitical angle that's involved here in this modern day thriller. But the Devil's Bible is the key to resolving that. And that's what makes it fun, that you can take something like this and weave this story around it and have this mystical thing. I mean, the Bible's the biggest book in the world. It's 3 foot tall, 2 foot wide, 9 inches thick, 165 pounds. It's incredible. It's written in one hand by one person all the way through with not a single error. And here's what's interesting, not a single deterioration of the writing. There's no, like as you get older, your writing changes. It would have taken decades to write this book, by the way, but one person wrote it all the way through, but it's like they've never aged the whole time they wrote it, which is quite remarkable. So the book is fascinating in that regard. It's been in the National Library of Stockholm in Sweden for 400 years. The Swedes stole it in 1648 from Bohemia, which is the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic has been wanting it back forever. And in this book, they get their opportunity.
I love that you have this incredible global lens, but in your personal life, you also have a very local lens. You and your wife founded History Matters. Mm-hmm. Would you tell listeners a little bit about why that project has also been so important for you and maybe how it ties into the work that you do as an author?
We created it about 17 years ago, and we help local communities raise money for historic preservation. We've done around 90 projects, raised nearly $3 million for these various projects. They're small projects. We've done cemeteries, buildings, books, posters, flags, you name it. We've raised money for it in order to preserve it. And this is smaller projects that don't get a lot of funding and don't have the opportunity to be done. And we've done them all over the country, and it's been quite gratifying. So we've enjoyed kind of giving back and doing that. We do that mainly through what's called a writer's workshop, where her and I teach a workshop for 4 hours, and you buy your way in with a contribution, and all of that money goes to the project. We don't charge to come. We don't charge expenses. We pay that out of our pocket. So all the money we raise goes to that. So it's kind of a unique way to raise, $100,000 or $50,000, or in some cases $300,000. we've been able to, raise, in these projects, getting it from writers who basically get the benefit of the instruction, but the historic artifact that we're there for gets the benefit of its restoration.
Steve, I'm willing to bet you've got a very unique approach to being in a place, both the work that you do with History Matters and caring about preservation, and then also being a tourist.
Mm-hmm.
Can you maybe give us a behind the scenes, what it is like to be in Steve Barry's mind when he is traveling somewhere? What are the things that you're looking out for? What are the questions that maybe you travel the world with?
Well, when I go on a research trip, we usually limit it to about 4 days. The one to Stockholm, we did a little longer because we did our work and then we were tourists for a little bit. So we were there 8 days. But usually it's a 4-day trip on research. And before I go, I spend many months studying the whole area very, very carefully so that I'm aware of things, maybe question marks, maybe things I need to explore when I get on the ground. The only reason I'm going is because I can't find what I'm looking for in books or online. If I could find it there, I'd just stay home. But inevitably you don't. And in this book particularly, I learned a lot in Stockholm that I would have never gotten online whatsoever. We had a guide who took us around. She was lovely, and the guides have to be very specific for me because I'm not your ordinary tourist. I'm looking for very, very unique things, and not all guides get it, but this lady did. And we were down in Stockholm. We were there. Snow was on the ground. We were there. She told me, she said, come here. I want to show you something. So we go up there and there's this elderly lady walking her dog in the snow by herself, just walking her dog, minding her own business, not doing a thing. And my guide says, that is the sister of the King of Sweden. And I said, what do you mean? She's just walking around? Yeah. She says she does it every day. She doesn't like security. She doesn't like all that stuff. She likes just to be herself. And when I saw that, the novel came to me. It sort of came to me, and that figures into the book. All of that figures into the book. And there's something that you're never going to see. But my guide also knew that I'd be interested in that, which was really good. And so she showed me a whole bunch of other stuff too. This book is dedicated to my travel agent who has for 25 years booked all those trips and made all those trips and found those guides and made all that happen. And I should have dedicated a book to her long ago, but she has been really great in putting all that together and making those trips happen.
Well, I am sure she appreciates it. Steve, you mentioned you hope that you've got 20 more books to go.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an aspect of history or a part of the globe that it's kind of like on your bucket list? You're not quite sure, as you just referenced in that story, there's this little piece of the puzzle you're waiting on. But is there a project that you have in mind that maybe readers would be surprised to hear you hope to get to?
Yeah, I want to get Cotton to the Far East. He's not done that at all. I want to get him to Southeast Asia. I'd like to get him to New Zealand and Australia and Africa. So these are places that I have not. And he's going to go there in the years ahead. Those are places he's definitely headed towards. And he's going to Romania in 2028. I wanted him to go there. I'm writing that novel right there. And I spent 10 days there a year ago. So I wanted to, these are places of the world that Cotton needs to explore and needs to have. And so he's definitely going to be headed there.
Well, we look forward to continuing to follow him and your journey. Steve Barry, thank you for coming on the show and talking about The Devil's Bible. We look forward to those 20 next novels to be.
So
congratulations again.
So do I. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. I'm sure you have heard by now, I wrote a new book, and I want to take a minute to tell you directly why I wrote Humans Still Required. For the past few years on this podcast, we've been wrestling with AI in real time. Not hype, not panic, just honest conversations about what it means for schools and leadership. This book is a result of that work. It's not about prompts or tools. It's about judgment. It's about trust. It's about the leadership decisions you can't outsource. As I say in the book, quote, control scales poorly, judgment scales well. If this podcast has supported your thinking, this book will take it deeper. Thank you for being a part of this community. And of course, You can learn more and grab your copy at shiftingschools.com.